The session is being recorded. Formally, we are starting the session. So first of all, everyone, let me share my screen to you and please do let me know audio, video, camera, all three signals are okay. All three okay. That's good. That's good. Okay. Today, we are going to discuss slightly in detail what we have already done in the last class. In the last class, the discussion was all about Hibernate. And while having the discussion about the Hibernate, we were actually making a comparison between the Hibernate and the JDBC. While doing the comparison between the Hibernate and the JDBC, lot of discussion we did with you. First of all, when we were talking about the JDBC, then definitely in JDBC, we were having lot of boilerplate code. Copy paste kind of code was there. Second problem is that we have to handle a lot of exception because the JDBC code is used to throw a lot of checked exception. And definitely whenever a method throws the checked exception, then definitely you have to handle them or you have to rethrow the same. After doing this part, then we were actually seeing that if it is a select operation, if it is a DRL statement, then in case of the DRL statement, actually JDBC is used to provide us the result set. And the problem is that the result set is something whose structure is to be known in advance in order to operate the same. If you don't know that what is in the result set, then definitely you will not be able to operate on the same. So we can say that, sir, first of all, result set is something that is a common data structure, but we must know the internal structure of the result set for a given query. Then we have to convert the same result set into the DTO object, and this process has to be done manually, which is again something too much time consuming. What is the solution to all these major problem? So the solution to all these major problem was using the JPA, that actually refer to Java Persistence API. What exactly the Java Persistence API? So Java Persistence API is a standard for the implementation of ORM in Java. And if I'm talking about the implementation of JPA, then multiple implementations are available. For example, we are having Hibernate, the most popular. Apart from the Hibernate, we are having Ibetris, we are having Eclipse Link, we are having Top Link. But Hibernate is something you can assume that this is a kind of de facto standard. Hibernate is something you can assume that this is a kind of de facto standard. So last time, a lot of discussion we have taken, but mainly if I'm talking about the discussion, then definitely the main discussion was all about the comparison and some basics. So in the day 12 in class content, all that discussion was there. All that discussion was there. One more drawback that we come across is whenever we are talking about the query, then definitely in the JDBC, we have to write down the database specific query. Whenever we are writing database specific query, then definitely this is something creating problem when it comes to porting the database. So what is the best solution? Again, the best solution is to use the Hibernate or any JPA implementation. No support for transaction caching. Some discussion was there we have done. Some explanation was also there that we have done. Now today, with respect to the example that we have already discussed to you, I'm going to discuss some of the basic pointers for you or going to discuss some of the basic terminologies to you that are very, very important. Whenever you are going to give an interview of the Hibernate, then chances are there any one or two terminologies will be asked to you. Like, let me talk about some of the terminologies. One of the terminology that actually common asking that what is the mean of persistent context is. Thereafter, they are asking that what is the mean of persistence unit is. Apart from that, what exactly a entity factory manager is, what exactly a entity manager is. Apart from asking for the same, definitely what is the difference between Pojo and what is the difference between entity? This is again something you can say that a very common question that everybody is asking. Apart from this, after the entity manager, if I'm talking about the next components, then into the next part, definitely we are going to discuss about some annotations. After some annotations, we will discuss about some strategies to generate the primary key. And after some strategies to generate the primary key, then we will talk about one very important thing, such that this is something called entity life cycle. This is something that is called entity life cycle. So this is lump sum. You can say it is what actually agenda of today is. Let me start everything one by one. If I'm talking about the first pointer, that what is the difference between POJO and entity is. This is something we have already discussed. Like, if you remember, POJO. The full form of POJO is plain old Java object. And whenever we are talking about a plain old Java object class, then we used to say that it is a class that does not implement any interface, or it does not extend any class from any external dependency. So simple word, we can say that whenever we wanted to compile a POJO class, or whenever we wanted to compile a POJI interface, then no external library is required, or we can say that POJO is something that is written purely into the core Java. Getting my point? POJO is something that is written purely in the core Java. On the other hand, everyone, when we are talking about the next term that is called entity, so definitely in case of entity, we used to say one thing, that an entity is actually annotated with @entity annotation. Because it is annotated with @entity annotation, so definitely to compile the same, external dependency for any implementation of JPA is required. So simple pointers we can say about the POJO versus entity is that whenever we are talking about POJO, so definitely POJO, you can say that purely written, WRITTEN, purely written according to, we can say that Java, STAN, STAN, standard addition. So for compilation, no additional library is required. This is what actually POJO is. On the other hand, if I'm talking about the entity, so definitely this class is mapping to database table, because this class is actually a mapping to the database table. So simply we can say that to compile this, we need some external library. This is one of the major difference that actually we were talking to you since the day one. So you can see that an entity class or persistence class is a Java class that actually developed corresponding to a database of a table already discussed. This class has as many instance variable, and definitely number of instance variable is same as number of column in the table. Again understood. We should take entity class as a POJO class, but it must have a no argument constructor, and it must use @ID annotation. This is the second difference. This is the second difference. So first point regarding POJO is discussed, but whenever you are talking about entity, then definitely you can say that it must have a no arg constructor. It must have a no argument constructor, and apart from the no argument constructor, definitely it must have a column that is annotated with @ID. That must be annotated with @ID. This is one thing available. Second thing, we need to provide the mapping information. We need to provide mapping information with the table using XML or using the annotation. See, actually there are two ways available. You can specify the mapping with the help of XML also, or you can provide the mapping with the help of annotations also. Both ways are possible. Nowadays, if I'm talking about the popular way, then definitely the popular way is writing the same with the help of annotation, not XML. I'm not saying that XML is outdated way. No, XML is still into the fashion, but when you are using XML, then definitely you need some more time to write your code. And when you are using annotations, so definitely annotation is something that is very easy to use for you. This is the one thing that actually you must understand. So some basic differences between the POJO and the entity class is done. Now everyone, if I'm talking about what exactly the mean of the persistence context is. Last time when I was taking the example, so let me once come to the STS. Into the STS, you have seen that we created one class. Name of the class is student. we have created a class. Name of the class is student. So here can you see one thing, that one class is available student. On the class student, we are using @entity annotations. After using @entity annotation, we are talking about @id. Private integer roll number, private string name, private integer marks is there, constructor is there, getter setter method is available. Can I say that student class is an entity class? Can I say that a student class is an entity class? Yes, I can say it, no problem, because we have seen the class is a mapping to the database table. To compile this class, we need external library. If you are going to the dependency, then you can see that we have added the dependency for org.hibernate core. We have dependency for Hibernate core, and Hibernate core is not part of Java Standard Edition. If you wanted to use Hibernate core, then definitely external dependency is required. How to use @entity annotation? So for the @entity annotation, or you can say that the meaning of @entity annotation, it is defined into the Hibernate core file. So definitely if this file is compiled, then without Hibernate core external dependency, the file cannot be compiled. Second thing is that it must have a no argument constructor, and it must have a column with the name with the annotation @id. So it is having no argument constructor also. Apart from the no argument constructor, one column with the name @id is also available, no problem in this. So this is an entity class. If I'm talking about the table that is generated by this entity class, can I say name of the table will be student? The table is going to have the three columns. The first column will be roll, second column will be name, third column will be marks, such that roll is going to have the data type integer, name is going to have the data type varchar 255, and marks is going to have the data type integer again. Clear this is? So simple. This is an entity class. This is an entity class. Okay. Now let me come to the next file. The name of the file is app.java. Into the file app.java, you can see that if I wanted to make a connection to the database, then to make a connection to the database, first of all, I need to create a file. The name of the file is required to be persistence.xml file. Into the persistence.xml file, the very first thing we need to include is XML header tag. After this, we have to specify the persistence root tag. This file you have to use as it is into all your further projects. The same file you have to use as it is into all your further project. If I'm talking about the location of this file, then did you remember within the src there is main folder available. Within the main folder, we have to create resources folder. Within the resources folder, we have to create meta inf, and definitely within the meta inf, you need to create something that is persistence.xml file. Clear everybody? What is the location of this file is? main/resources/meta-inf/persistence.xml. So persistence tag is there. After the persistence tag, you can see there is one more tag available. The name of the tag is called persistence unit tag. Into the persistence unit tag, you are providing a name also. So can I say this persistence unit is actually containing driver name, URL, username, password. Into the URL, database is also specified. So if I wanted to connect to a database, then definitely to connect to a single database, I have to provide a persistence unit. Let's say that if my application wanted to connect to 10 different databases, then definitely in the single persistence.xml file, I can define 10 different persistence unit. In the coding, whatever unit I wanted to use, I can use directly using the entity factory manager. So simple can I say, all the database related control has to be written within the persistence.xml. Yes or no? All the database related code has to be written in the persistence.xml. This is the simple logic. What exactly the persistence unit is? Persistence unit is actually defining the connection property for a single database. This is a simple word. Persistence unit actually define the properties to connect to a single database. Additionally, if you wanted to see the SQL queries generated, if you wanted to define the table creation behavior, then the same thing you can also define into the persistence unit. This is the one thing that is available. Property is there. So first thing, it will be good to talk about what is the mean of persistence context is. So before talking about the persistent context, slightly I have to discuss about app.java, etc. First of all, everyone, if I'm talking about making the database connection, so definitely to make the database connection, first of all, using the persistence interface, we have to call the create entity factory manager, entity manager factory. Into the entity manager factory, I have to specify name of the persistence unit. I have to specify name of the persistence unit. Once name of the persistence unit is available to you, then to fire the query, you have to create entity manager also. You have to create entity manager also. So here I am going to discuss to you about few pointers. One thing I will discuss to you is persistent context. Second thing I will discuss to you is going to be persistence unit. And third thing that I will discuss to you will be entity manager. Now listen to me very, very carefully. You are creating entity manager into the add student, or directly let me come to the update operation. It will be good to discuss. Into the update operation, you can see that first of all, we are finding the student for the given ID. After finding the student for the given ID, then simple, we are starting the entity transaction. After starting the entity transaction, then we are just changing the property into the entity object, and whatever changes we are making in the properties of entity object, the changes are automatically applicable to the database. Yes or no? Remember this thing? Those who have done assignment, those who have taken the class slightly with sincerity, I told you one thing, that in case of entity manager, your database management system and your entity object, they are into the perfect synchronization. If you are making changes into the entity object, then these changes are automatically applicable to the database. No need to write down any separate query manually. Remember this part, because my all discussion will be around this line. Everyone, update operation is clear? Yes. So this time, how exactly this synchronization is maintained? This time, how exactly this synchronization is maintained? Now I am going to discuss about the same thing. So first of all, let me start with the persistent context. What exactly the mean of persistent context is? Simply we can say that persistent context actually refer to set of entity such that each entity is unique in the persistence context, or you can say each entity is unique in this context. Second number point, all life cycle operation of the entity takes place in the persistence context. And one more thing that I would love to write down is that the entity manager is responsible for the management of entity. Entity manager is responsible for management of the entity. So let me take a very, very, very simple analogy. Let me take a very, very simple analogy. The simple analogy, let's say that if I am talking about a zoo, then can I say that zoo is a place where actually all the animals are available such that kind of every animal is unique? Yes or no? Extremely simple analogy I am discussing with you. In the zoo, no matter whether you are having 10 deers, whether you are having 2 lions, definitely every animal is unique in itself. You can identify every animal uniquely. They are going to complete their life cycle within the zoo only. Yes, sir, they are going to complete. So if I'm talking about who is responsible for managing them, can I say that zookeeper is a person who is responsible for managing everything for them? Yes, it is. So here, can I say that entity manager is something that is working like a zookeeper, and persistent context is something you can call it's a zoo for him. Is that analogy clear? And entity is something you can consider that is animal of the zoo. Entity manager is something that you can consider element of the zoo. So what is persistent context? Persistence context is a set of entities. What is zoo? Zoo contains set of animals. Entities are used to complete their life cycle within the persistent context. Okay, sir. Animals are also used to complete their life cycle within the zoo. Entity manager is responsible for managing the life cycle of every entity. Here, zookeeper is responsible for managing the life cycle of every animal. This is the simplest example that I have given you. So simple. Persistent context, set of entity. Persistent context, simple set of entity. Why it is used? Because all the life cycle of the entity is managed in this set. Who is responsible for the management? Then you will say that entity manager is someone who is responsible for the management. So this analogy is clear, everybody. What is the meaning of persistent context is? Okay. Just one liner definition you have to say. Set of entities such that every entity is unique. Entity has to complete its life cycle within the persistent context, and entity manager is responsible for managing the life cycle. Let me come here on the STS. So can I say initially we have created a connection using entity manager. After creating the connection using entity manager, we are trying to find an object. After finding the object, we started the transaction. And when we are making changes into the property of the entity object, it is actually reflected in the database automatically. So can I say this is job that is done by the entity manager? Can I say the synchronization job is actually done by the entity manager? Yes or no? Can I say this thing? Second number point. Second number point. Second number point. If we are having 10 entity object, if we are having 10 entity object, so definitely entity manager should manage all the 10. Answer is yes, but if and only if they are part of the persistent context. Because see, entity is barely a class. Yes, it is. And anybody can create object of a class. Yes, it is. So is it responsibility of the entity manager to manage every entity? Answer is no. Until unless an entity is part of the persistent context, entity manager is not responsible for any operation. Or let's say that you wanted to get entity manager to manage an entity, then the entity must be part of the persistent context. This point clear, everyone? Like an animal is out of the zoo, zookeeper is not responsible. Similarly, the entity is out of the persistent context, entity manager is not responsible. This is the simple logic that actually we are having. Okay. Okay, so this is what actually the first point I was talking to you, that what is the meaning of persistent context is. This discussion already we have done. So please take a look here. A persistent context is a set of entity instances in which for any persistence entity identity, there is unique entity instance. Simply, every entity in the persistent context is unique. Simple logic, every entity in the persistent context must be unique. Within the persistent context, the entity instance and their lifecycle are managed. Already discussed. Then the Jakarta.persistence.persistence class has following method. The first method is available, that is create entity factory manager. Here you have to specify unit name. If I'm talking about the unit name, then can I say this unit name is something same as what you have specified in persistence.xml for the persistence unit tag? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So now let me talk about what is the meaning of persistence unit is. A persistence unit defines the set of all classes that are related or grouped by the application and which must be co-located in their mapping to a single database. The set of entity that can be managed by given entity manager instances defined by the persistence unit. Simple. This one, second line is something that is more easy to remember for you. The set of entities that can be managed by the given entity manager instance is defined by the persistence unit. So can I say that persistence unit is simple, that is related to database? It is responsible for entities that are related to a single database. This kind of explanation is simple, I think. Yes or no? Now, so what is the meaning of persistence unit is? Simple, you can say that it defines the set of classes that are related or grouped by application which must be co-located for mapping into a single database. This is the first number point that actually we have discussed about the persistence unit. And second thing is already there, that whenever you are talking about the persistence unit, the set of entities can be managed by the given entity manager instance. Two things are done. What exactly the mean of entity manager is? Can I say it is responsible for managing all the responsible for managing entities in the persistence context? Yes or no? Very simple definition of the entity manager. Okay, this part is also done. This part is also done. Now let me come to the next part. What is exactly entity factory manager is? Entity factory manager is actually, you can say that it is entity manager factory. So it is factory simple. Can I say that it is responsible for generating entity managers? Entity manager factory, can I say that it will be responsible for generating the entity manager? Simple one. But actually there is one thing available, that entity manager factory is a heavy object. It should be only one per application. Because it is required to be only one per application, that's why you can see that I have created it in the form of a static variable, because for a static only a single copy exists. Remember this rule? Yes, it is. So if something is static, it's only one copy will be there, so it will not generate too much overhead on your memory. It will not generate too much overhead on your memory. Now you can see that an entity manager instance is associated with the persistent context. The entity manager API is used to create and remove persistence entity instance, to find the entity by their primary key, and to query other entity. So simple, entity manager is the ultimate one person we have to deal with during the entire project. Yes or no? If you wanted to do anything, then definitely go to the entity manager. Where are entities residing? Entities are residing into the persistent context. Who is managing the persistent context? Entity manager is managing the persistent context. Who is creating the entity manager? You will say entity manager factory. You will say that entity manager factory is responsible for creating the instance. Where is the database detail available? You will say into the persistence.xml file. Where is this file located? src/min/resources/meta-inf. How to get the connection? Remember the name of the persistence unit, because persistence unit will connect your application to the database. And definitely, whatever additional property you wanted to specify, you can specify there. So from all that discussion, what exactly persistent context? What is persistence unit? What is entity manager factory? And what is entity manager? This discussion some 50-60% clear in your mind than the previous class? Yes, it is. If you remember their rules, then definitely it will be good. What is persistent context is one of the common question. What is persistent context? This is one of the common question. Again, if I'm talking about the entity manager, then definitely entity manager actually manages a connection pool. One second, everybody. So first thing is available connection pool. In case of the connection pool, you can see one thing. See, normally in case of JDBC, we used to do one thing. We used to open the connection, then we used to fire the query. After firing the query, then we have to, you can say that, close the connection. So in case of JDBC, connection management was our responsibility. But here in case of Hibernate, let's say that there are 5 connection objects are available. They are connected to the database. Whichever connection object is available, your query will be handed over to that connection, and then your query will be fired. Practically, how connection is created, how it is aborted, everything is done behind the scene by the entity manager. You are not responsible for the same. Getting my point? This time, connection making is not our responsibility. It will be done by the entity manager. If I'm talking about some of the common methods, then among some of the common methods, did you remember persist method that is used to save insert query or save operation? Yes, it is. Did you remember the find method responsible for fetch information based on the primary key, search, such that it is directly returning you the entity object, such that it is directly returning you the entity, object. Did you remember the close method? We have already used this method. em.close at the last. If you wanted to close the entity manager, then to close the entity manager, you have to use the same thing. Similarly, so some other methods are also available that we will discuss. Get transaction already discussed, such that the get transaction method is giving you an object of the entity transaction, and from the object of the entity transaction we can call the begin method and we can call the commit method also. Remember? Yes. So all these methods are available here. Remaining methods are also there that actually we will discuss to you. At the rate entity annotation, remember? Yes, it is. At the rate ID annotation already used to map a column name with the primary key or to map a field name with the primary key of the column. By default, what is happening? Whatever table, whatever entity class name is, the same is going to be your table name. Whatever your class name is, the same is going to be your table name. But let me assume a situation. For example, you are having an already existing project. The existing project is, let's say, created on Python programming. And now exactly the client wants that this project should be migrated from Python to Java. So in this case, will you create the new table or you have to use the existing database? Option number one, you will create a new table, or option number two, you will use the existing database. Definitely. If you wanted to use the existing database, so might be possible. Java is having its own table naming convention. Python programmer might have done something mix up. So if you wanted to use the legacy table structure, then to use the legacy table structure, there is annotation available at the rate table annotation. In the at the rate table annotation, you can specify the table name also. So this time you are explicitly specifying the table name. So your entity class name and your table name, by default, they are same. But when you are writing at the rate table annotation, so you are providing the table name explicitly. So this time you can use some existing table also. No need to take care about the table name. Getting my point? Okay, everyone. Similarly, if you wanted to change the column name, then definitely you can change the column name also. Similarly, you can change the column name also. For example, let's say that into the Java programming, if you have written the name of the variable that is roll number such that R is available into the small letter and N is available into the capital letter. So if I'm talking about the by default in your MySQL, then in MySQL, by default, it will be roll underscore number. Getting my point? In Java programming, if you have given the name of the variable roll number such that R is into the small letter, N is into the capital letter, then in MySQL automatically the name of the column is going to be roll underscore number. So default conversion is clear how this is working. Yes, it is. But you are saying that, okay, sir, column name is something already existing there. It is not according to the convention. It is not underscore separated. So I will say no problem. Like you can provide a custom name to the table. Similarly, you can provide custom name to the column also. Getting my point? Similarly, you can provide custom name to the column also. To provide the custom name to the column, you have to use at the rate column annotation. You have to use at the rate column annotation. The third thing is available at the rate transient. Third thing is available at the rate transient. See, by default, what happens, whatever variables you are writing within the entity class, they all are actually mapped to database table. They all are actually mapped to database table. But let's say that if you wanted to create some variable only for the temporary basis, it's an instance variable. You do not want it to get stored into the database. In this condition, such field has to be preceded with at the rate transient annotation. If something is at the rate transient, means it is not going to be saved. In the serialization, did you remember transient keyword? If an instance variable of a class is transient, then it will not be serialized. So can I say that same kind of effect, if we wanted to achieve at the database level, then there is at the rate transient annotation. Yes or no? Analogy clear? Then at the rate temporal, this at the rate temporal is available when you wanted to deal with date and time. This @temporal is available when you wanted to deal with date and time. Then final thing is available enumeration. This is for enum constant. So, well, let me once come back to my previous example. Into the previous example, out of all the annotations, we have used only two annotations. One of the annotation that we have used is @entity annotation. Another annotation that we have used is @id annotations. And in this example, regarding the update operation, I am having something that you must actually know in advance. See, here everybody, what is going on in the update operation? Entity manager is there. Student equal to em dot find student dot class. You are passing the roll number also. So on the behalf of roll number, from the database, one entry is fetched, and for this entry, student entity object is created. Yes or no? Line number 50. Yes, it is. Okay. Using the entity manager, you are actually fetching this record. So can I say that entity manager is aware that you have fetched some record from the database? Yes or no? Simple language. Because you are fetching this entry using the find method of entity manager. So your entity manager is now aware that some record is fetched from the database. I have to maintain the synchronization between the database table and the object. This is the responsibility of the entity manager is. Then entity transaction is there. You are making the changes. And when you are making the changes, then definitely changes are in the database permanently. How exactly this thing is happening? For this thing, we have to discuss about one very important thing. And this important thing is referred as the entity life cycle. This thing is referred as the entity life cycle. Now just let me give you a very simple example. From this simple example, you will understand the things. I am writing a very basic amount of code. For example, everybody, let's say that I am writing student st equal to new student. Let's say that the value for roll number is 2. And let's say that this entire code I am writing within the main method. Student st equal to new student 2. For the name, let's say that I am writing some value. For the percentage, let's say I am writing this value. This is the point number 1. So far, no entity manager is here. So far, no entity manager is here. When there is no entity manager, so what do you think? What do you think? Will it be in the synchronization with the database? Definitely no. Definitely no, because your entity manager says, I don't know who you are. Or your entity manager will says that I don't know what exactly this is. So first time, can I say that this is available into the transient state? No connection with the database. It's a new object. It has no connection with the entity manager. So definitely it has no connection with the database. It's an independent object, very much like a ordinary Java object. So can I say that whenever you are creating a new database object, which is not associated with any entity manager, so it is into the transient state? Yes or no? Simple logic is clear. Whenever you are creating a new object such that the new object is not associated with the entity manager, then definitely we can call that, sir, this is a object in the transient state. So what exactly the mean of the transient state is? Just try to understand. The transient state is the life cycle state of newly instantiated entity object is called transient. It actually doesn't represent any database record because it has not been persisted yet. You can think of an entity object in the transient state as a basic Java object without any connection to the database and any specific JPA functionality. Same thing that I told you. Simply no connection with the database, no entity manager. Yes, it is. So right now, this is actually available into the transient state. And definitely, if something is available into the transient state, then you can say that nobody is responsible for anything. Then can you see that if you are calling persist method, then it is turning into the managed state? Can you see for this, if we are calling the persist method, then it is turning into the managed state. So you will say that's right now it is into the transient state. Okay. But if I wanted to keep it into the managed state, then I have to call the persist method. To call the persist method, I need entity manager. For the entity manager, first I need to have the entity manager factory. Within the entity manager factory, I need a persistence unit. So did you remember? Using the persistence class, there is a method available. The name of the method is get entity manager factory method. Yes or no? Here actually you have to specify name of the persistence unit. Name of the persistence unit in our case was student connect. Remember? This point clear, everybody? This is going to provide you an object of entity manager factory. Using the object of entity manager factory, can we get the entity manager? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Once the entity manager is available to you, using this entity manager, let's say you are calling the persist method and you are passing st here. So once actually persist method is called, can I say that from the transient state, it is going to the next state? The name of the state is called managed state. Yes or no? How to take an entity from transient state to database state? The very first way is available. You should call the persist method. First point clear, everybody? This is the first way, not the only way, but this is the first way. Now, what is the mean of persistent state? What is the mean of managed state? Let us try to understand. Managed state. All entity object attached to the current persistent context are in lifecycle state manage. This means that your persistence provider, example Gracia, Hibernate, will detect any changes on the object and generate the required SQL insert or update statement. So can I say that when an entity is into the manage state, so the database object, so the database table and your entity object, they are in the synchronization? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So simple, everybody. Can I say that whenever right now it is into the manage state, and when it is into the manage state, and let's say this time if I am writing that st dot set name, and into the set name, for example, let's say that I am writing the name Sachin. So definitely, can I say that update statement will be executed here? Can I say that update statement will be here? And it is into the manage state. So can I say that insert statement will be here? Yes or no? Is that comfortable? Shall we move further? What is the mean of manage state? Is that clear? Okay. So if I'm talking about how to take an object into the manage state, so simple logic to take an object in the managed state. First thing, you should call the persist method using entity manager for this object. This is the first way available that we are having. Now let me talk about the other ways also, and once actually it will be good to reread. All the entity object attached to the current persistent context are into the lifecycle state manage, and that means your persistence provider, e.g. Hibernate, will detect any changes on the object and generate the required SQL insert or update statement. When it flushes the persistent context, there are different ways to get an entity of the lifecycle state manage. First way, to call the persist method of a new entity object. We have already taken this example. Yes or no? Second, fetch the entity object from the database. Fetch the entity object from the database. So whenever you are using find method to fetch any entity, then it is automatically turning into the manage state. Same meaning? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So let me come to STS once. In the STS, I am in the update statement, and when I am in the update statement, first thing, I have created entity manager. Using this entity manager, we are finding the student entity object defined by roll number. So here in the line number 50, if I'm asking you what is the state of student entity object, what you will answer? Option number 1, transient. Option number 2, persist or managed. Write your answer. I am fetching the entity object using entity manager. When I'm fetching the object of entity using entity manager, then the state should be option number 1 transient, option number 2 managed. Most of you answered it correctly. It is available into the managed state. And when it is available into the managed state, then can I say whatever changes I am doing, these changes are automatically applicable to the database also? Yes or no? So how the update operation was working in the last example, is that okay? Behind the scene entity lifecycle was working. Clear it is? That's good. That's good. That's good. So you must be aware about this thing. And this is a pseudocode only. This is not an actual code. This is a pseudocode only. Definitely you have to begin transaction. Then you have to call the method, etc., etc. This is just for explaining you. We will take a complete example on the STS also. So two things we have already done. So if I wanted to take any entity object into the persistent state, so far I know two ways. The first way is available, you should call the persist method. Second way is available, whenever you are calling the find method, then automatically your record is available into the managed state. Getting my point, everyone? These are the two ways. Then coming to the third part, two more states are available. One of the state is available, that is called the detach state, and one more state is available, that is called the remove state. What is the difference between detach and the remove is just try to understand. When an entity is into the manage state, then definitely your database table and your object, they are perfectly into the synchronization, and their synchronization is maintained by entity manager. Simple logic. But on the other hand, everybody, if you are calling detach method, evict method, close method, or clear method using the entity manager, then your entity is going into the detach state. And when an entity is into the detached stage, so you can say that kind of it is out of persistent context. And if it is out of persistent context, then do you think there will be any synchronization between the entity object and the database table? Definitely not. Definitely not, because when entity is out of the persistent context, or let's say that your persistent context is close, or let's say your entity manager is close, then there will be no synchronization. So this is what actually your detached state is. So what is the mean of detached state is, just try to see this pointer. An entity that was previously managed but is no longer attached to the current persistent context is referred to as life cycle state detach. An entity get detached when you close the persistent context using the close method, or you call the clear method to put all the entities into the detached state. You can also programmatically detach an entity by calling the detach method on the entity manager. But keep in mind, you have detached your entity from the persistent context. You have not deleted this entity from the database table. Getting my point? This is not a deletion operation. This is just a detachment operation. Clear? Do not think that if it is not in the persistent context means record will be deleted. No, no. You are just actually losing the connection between the persistent context and the database connection. That's all. That's all. So listen, right now, I'm not saying this is a complete code. Here, actually, what I decided to do, the thing that I decided to do, for example, let's say I'm calling em.close. When I'm calling em.close, so this time can I say that here the object st is in the detached state? Yes or no? Because persistent context is no longer exist, entity manager is closed. Make sense, everybody? Now let's say that if I am writing st.setMarks, and into the st.setMarks, let's say I am writing the value 20. Do you think that there will be any update query? Definitely no, because it is not into the managed state. It is actually into the detached state. In the detached state, there is no communication, there is no coordination between the database table and the object. So definitely no update query will be here. Is that clear, everyone? It is something that is out of context. So simple logic that we have seen, that if you wanted to take an object into the detached state, then to get the same thing into the detached state, the very first thing that you have to do is you can call the close method, or you can call the clear method, or you can call the evict method. In the evict method, you have to pass the entity object, or you can call the next method that is called detached method. No, it was something that is what was the name of the method? I forgot. Detach. Sorry, detach. Name of the method was detach. Evict I have already written. So if you are calling these fours, then definitely it is into the detached state. When it is into the detached state, no communication between the database and the entity object yet. In database, record is there. This is the simple mean that I was telling you. Okay. Once actually we are available into the detached state, can we come back to the managed state? Answer is yes. If you wanted to come back into the managed state, then what you have to call? You have to call merge method. Getting my point? Everybody, if you are calling the merge method, then your entity will come back into the manage state. So listen to me very, very carefully. So far, there is no update query available. Let me create the entity manager again. Let me create the entity manager again. After calling this entity manager, let's say that I am calling the merge method. And while calling the merge method, again, I am passing st. So can I say that st object is now in the manage state? Yes or no? And if it is into the managed state, so definitely update query will be performed automatically. Because it is into the managed state, so definitely everything is required to be in the coordination database table, and the object is required to be in the coordination. So once you are calling the merge method, then automatically state of the object will be changed from detached to manage. And when it is from detached to manage, then definitely your update query will be executed automatically. Getting my point? Those who are facing any difficulty in this, please feel free to ask. This is extremely important concept because I'm going to take a whole long example on the same. Seems no reply. Okay. Finally, I'm talking about the last stage. Finally, I'm talking about the last stage that is called the remove method or remove state. When you are calling the remove method, when you are calling the remove method, then from the managed state, it is turning into the removed state. What is the meaning of removed state is? The meaning of removed state is very, very simple. It is out of the persistent context. Apart from out of the persistent context, this record will be deleted from the database. Getting my point? This record will be deleted in the database. This is the one point available. And definitely, if something is deleted from the database, and if you wanted to store the same thing again into the database, then using the persist method, you have to call the insert query again. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So simple. If something is removed, it is out of the context also, and it is going to be deleted from the database also. If again you wanted to keep the same record into the database, then there is no other option to call the persist method. Getting my point, everyone? How this is going on? So here, what is the mean of remove status? When you call the remove method on your entity manager, the map database record doesn't get removed immediately. The entity object only change its life cycle state to remove. During the next flush operation, Hibernate will generate an SQL delete statement to remove the record from the database table. Overall, just you need to remember, when you are calling remove method, immediately it is out of persistent context and it is to be deleted, but deletion is sure. It is to be deleted, but deletion is sure. So next time, whenever persistent context is closed, it is flushing the queries. At that time, delete operation will be done. And if you wanted to keep the same database object again into the managed state, then definitely there is no other option available than to call the persist method. Is that okay? Yes, very much like putting them something into the recycle bin and then restoring. But the problem is that it is in the form of transaction. So once a record is deleted, means it is deleted, you can restore the new record, but you cannot take back the previous one. This is something in the form of transaction. So this is one thing that is available regarding the flush operation. Can you see that there is a flush method available? Into the entity manager, can you see flush method is available? So before calling the close method, you can call the flush method, no problem. So merge method is also clear. Recently we have discussed. Then finally, I will repeat the entire things for you, don't worry. Finally, once again, I will repeat the entire things for you, don't worry. Okay, let me take example again. Let me take the example again. This will be helpful for you. This will be helpful for you because some people are getting so much confused. Hmm. Let me write down in my own way. Let me write down in my own way. I was talking to you about the topic that is called entity life cycle. And whenever I'm talking about entity life cycle, then during the entire life cycle, an entity is automatically going through 4 stages. If I'm talking about the first stage, then definitely the first stage is actually referred as the transient stage. Second stage is available. The second stage is actually referred as the managed state. The second state is referred as the managed state. What is the mean of transient state? Transient state means your object, or you can say that your entity object is a new Java object. It has no connection with the persistent context. PC means persistence context, because it will be difficult for me to type every time. It will be difficult for me to type every time. Entity object is a new Java object. It has no connection with the PC means persistent context, and definitely no relation with the database also. So definitely no relation, or you can say that no communication, or you can say that no coordination with the database also. This is the one thing that I'm saying you. Now let me take parallel example for this. The parallel example, let's say that there is a class available. Let's say that the name of the class I am writing is app. Into the class app, I am writing here public static void main. After writing public static void main string args, let me create an entity object for the class student. Roll number I am writing 10. Name, let's say that I am writing is KLH, and marks, for example, let's say I am writing 10. First step. Right now, do I have any connection to the database? Answer is no. Do I am having any entity manager? Answer is no. So can I say that this object, line number 38, right now it is available into the transient state? Yes or no? First point, everybody, submit your response. What is transient state? Is it clear? Yes, it is. That's good. That's good. That's good. Now I wanted to actually create entity factory manager. If I wanted to create the entity factory manager, then definitely I have to call the method. The name of the method is called create entity factory manager. We have to call create entity factory manager, and definitely I have to give name of the persistence unit. The name of the persistence unit is called student connect. So here everybody, the very first thing that it is going to give me, definitely I will get an object of entity factory manager. From the object of entity factory manager, can I get the entity manager? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. So I'm writing here that is entity manager, et equal to emf dot get entity manager. If I'm asking you object st, is it into the persistent state? Is it into the managed state? Or is it still into the transient state? Question number 1. What is the state of object st right now on the line number 43? It is into the managed state or it is into the transient state? Definitely answer is sir, it is available into the transient state. If I wanted to put the same thing into the managed state, then definitely to put the same thing into the managed state, I have to call the persist method. Yes, it is. So for example, everybody using this EM, first of all, definitely I have to get the transaction when I'm calling the get transaction manager. So definitely we are getting the transaction here. Using the transaction, first thing we have to call is the begin method. After calling the begin method, using the em, I can call the persist method. When we are calling the persist method, in the persist method, I am calling st. Then I am writing et dot commit. Then I'm writing et dot commit. So this time, can I say if I'm talking about the object st earlier that was in the transient state, right now it is available into the managed state, yes or no? So managed state. So whenever actually your entity is available into the managed state, so can I say that it is something that is attached to the persistent context and the object and the entity object and database table, definitely they are in synchronization. Is that clear? So whatever changes done in the entity object, they are applicable for the database also. Can I say this thing? Okay. So if I'm talking about the one of the possible way, then definitely one of the possible way to keep an object into the manage status by calling the persist method. Yes or no? Is that okay? This is something that you can do by calling the persist method. This is the one point that actually we are having available first way. Now let's say, for example, using this em, I'm calling the close method. So when I'm calling the close method, so definitely persistent context is close. If I'm talking about object st, then what you would love to say, object st is available. Option number 1, transient state. Option number 2, managed state. Option number 3, detached state. What will be your answer? When the persistent context is close, persistent context no longer exists. So definitely it cannot be in the managed state. It can not be in the managed state because you can see in the managed state, your object is attached to the persistent context. If there is no persistent context, then how it can be in the managed state? Definitely no. Definitely no. Second thing, everybody, when you are calling the close method, so remember the diagram. Remember the diagram. The diagram actually says whenever you are calling the detach, evict, clear, or close, then your object will jump into the detach state. Getting my point? That's good. One more thing. Once your object is available into the managed state, can it come back to the transient state? Take a look at the diagram. Once your object is available into the managed state, can it come back to the transient state? Definitely not possible. Definitely not possible. From the manage, it can be either detach or it can be either remove. No other option is possible. So I was asking you in which state the object st is. So definitely you will say that object st is available into the detached state. Getting my point? Not dead, it is detached state. When it is into the detached state, so definitely your database and your database and your object, they are now completely unrelated. So they are kind of unsynchronized this time. So this is what actually state that is referred as the third stage. So this time, I was talking to you about the third state. The third state is actually called detached state. Into the detached state, entity object is no longer associated to persistent context. So definitely your entity object, your entity object and database table, they are not in synchronization, or you can say that they are disconnected now. It will be good to say disconnected now. If I'm talking about the very first way, then definitely the very first way is by closing the entity manager. Yes or no? First point clear? By closing the entity manager, this is the first way available. Definitely second is available by calling the clear method on the entity manager. Second is also clear by calling clear method on the entity manager. This is the second way available. If I'm talking about the third possible way, then definitely third possible way already exists. If you are actually calling the evict method, if you are actually calling the evict method on the entity object, then this is also possible. Thereafter, if I'm talking about the fourth point, into the fourth point, whenever you are, let's say that calling the one more method is available, that is detach method, then this is the fourth possibility that is available. Okay, this part is done. This part is done. Again, everybody, you can see that if I'm calling the merge method, then by calling the merge method, again, it will come back to the manage state. Yes or no? Simple logic. Again, it will come back to the manage state. So if you wanted to take any object to the manage state again, then definitely second way is available. You need to call the merge method. You need to call the merge method. This is the second option that is available for us. Okay, so right now, actually, if I'm talking about the object st is available into the detached state. So if you are, let's say, calling st dot set name method you are calling, and let's say, let me change the name to some jhg. So see, initially it was into the transient state. Entity manager is created. Thereafter, process method is called. Entity manager is closed. When entity manager is closed, it is into the detached state. Now I am changing the name. So do you think that update query will be executed? Do you think that update query will be executed? Answer is no, definitely no. So you will say that no update query, no update query, because entity manager is closed here. So if I wanted to get it back, then definitely to get it back, again, I have to take the entity manager. After taking the entity manager, again, I have to begin the transaction. After beginning the transaction, then I have to call the next method. The name of the next method is actually called em.merge method. And into the em.merge method, we have to pass the object st. And after passing the object st, then definitely we have to call the next method that is called commit method. So this time, everybody, right now, entity manager is created, entity transaction is there, we are beginning the entity, and then we are calling the merge method. After calling the merge method, if I am asking the state of the object st, what you will answer? It is into the manage state, or it is going to be into the detached state? Yes, definitely it is into the manage state. And because it is into the manage state, so can I say that update query will be executed? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So update query is executed here. So see, initially, object is into the transient state. From the transient, it is going into the persist state. From the persist state, it cannot come back to the transient state. From the persist state, there are two options available. First option is it can go to the detached state. How to go to the detached state? Four options are available. Close the entity manager, call the clear method, call the evict method, or call the detach method. These are the four possible ways we have. Then everyone, if you wanted to take your object back from detached state to the, you can say that manage state, then there is only one way available, that is by calling the merge method. Is that okay? Options clear? Yes, it is. Okay. So for example, let's say this time I am again calling em dot close method, or let's say that I am calling let's say I'm calling em dot close method. So when I'm calling em dot close method, then again, can I say that object st is going to be into the detached state? Yes or no? Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. Now object st, forget about the object st. We have done with the object st. Now let me talk about the next case. The next case is that, for example, let's say I am actually again taking the entity manager. After taking the entity manager, this time I am calling the find method. In the find method, I am saying that I wanted to get the student class such that the value of primary key is required to be 10. So can I say that this is going to give me an object of student? Yes or no? Can you say this is going to give me an object of st1? St, yes, it is. Right now, if I'm asking you what is the state of st1, what you will answer? The correct answer is managed. The correct answer is managed. Please focus on this area. Can you see? Using the find method, whenever you are getting an entity object, then it is by default turning into the managed state. Yes or no? So if I'm asking you st1, it is into the which state, then can you say that object st1 is actually available into the managed state? Yes or no? Yes, it is. And when it is into the managed state, then in this condition, for example, let's say you are beginning the transaction, and after beginning the transaction, immediately you are calling st dot set name, and you are changing the value to uty. So what do you think? Update query will be executed? Definitely yes. Definitely yes. Update query will be executed here. So update query will be executed here. Perfect. So if I'm talking about the third way of taking an entity into the manage state, then definitely by calling the find method. Is that clear, everyone? So this is the third way available. Okay. Now let me go to the next way. Let me go to the next way. Begin is there. Et dot commit is there. After et dot commit, then I'm doing one thing using this em. Let me call the method. The name of the method is called the remove method. And into the remove method, I am calling st1. So what do you think? Now in which state it will be? Transient, manage, detached, or removed? Definitely name already specify. It will go into the remove stage. It will go into the remove stage. So this time object st is available into the remove stage. This time object st is available into the remove state. And because it is into the remove state, so let's say that if I am calling em.flush, so as I am calling em.flush, so definitely can I say that delete query will be executed here? Can I say that delete query will be executed here? Yes or no? Yes, it is. And let's say you are saying that, sir, I wanted to get this object again into the manage state. So if I wanted to get the same object again into the manage state, then again I have to call the persist method. This is the only way, because persist method will make a new entry into the database. Getting my point? Yes, it is. So simple, 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 simple concept. Now, so flush method is there. So flush method says that whatever queries are pending, just execute them. Flush method says whatever queries are pending, just execute them. Like you have seen the file flush method into the file operation also. Did you remember buffer reader? If you have used this, well, listen everyone. See, simple logic. When your entity manager is there, so what is the responsibility of entity manager? Mainly, broadly, we can say that it is responsible for lifecycle management. And whenever there is lifecycle management, so definitely synchronization between the object and database. This is also one of the job. Yes or no? Synchronization between database and entity object. This is also one of the job. So listen, can we assume that all the queries are getting fired immediately? Possibly answer is no. Possibly answer is no. Getting my point? Yes, it is. So for example, let's say you are calling em.remove st1. When you are calling em.remove st1, so can I say now object st1 is not part of persistent context? Yes or no? Now, object st1 is not part of persistent context. If something is not a part of persistent context, so let's say now you are making some changes. So what do you think? These changes will be applied on the database? Let's say into the st1, if you are making some changes, let's say that again I am writing st.setMarks and I am writing value 25. What do you think? Update query will be there? Definitely answer is no, because this is not part of the persistent context. So how update query will be there? So once you are calling the remove method, you are detaching the object from the persistent context and you are asking your ORM to delete this object, but possibility is there that delete operation cannot be performed immediately. Getting my point? Synchronization is there, but latency is also there. Synchronization is there, latency means delay is also there, because for example, let's say that on your database or on your table, right now 20 queries are executing and some of the queries are insert query. So possibility is there that your record will be logged. If your record is logged, then definitely delete query cannot be fired immediately. So the thing is that everybody, if you are calling the remove method, so definitely now your object st1 is not part of the persistent context, and definitely it will be deleted from the database. It will be deleted from the database in future, but not immediately. Getting my point? What exactly the behavior of remove is? And when you are calling the flush method, so whatever operations are pending, now these operations has to be executed compulsorily. So let's say that if your delete operation is pending, then can I say that delete query, if it is pending, then it will be executed here actually? Yes or no? So can I say after flush, your query, your object, it was already not part of the persistent context. Now it is removed from the database also. If it is removed from the database also, then can I say that practically entity kind of doesn't exist? Yes or no? Or it is a kind of in the transient state? Yes, it is. And when it is again available in the transient state, if you wanted to again get it back to persist state, then manage state, then definitely you have to call what method? Persist method. Getting my point? So let's say that again you wanted to, you are committed, no, I wanted to take it again. Then no problem, no problem, no problem. Again, you have to, first of all, start the transaction. Then you have to begin the transaction. After beginning of the transaction, then you can say that you have to call em dot persist method. And when you are calling em dot persist method, into the persist method, you have to pass this st1 as a parameter. And when you are passing this st1 as a parameter, then definitely you will say that, sir, when we are talking about the object st1, then definitely the object st1 is again available into the managed state. Getting my point, everyone? How to come back? Hmm. Finally, you can close, you can do all the jobs. So from this thing, I hope that now what is entity lifecycle, what are the different states? They are clear to you? So simple. Actually, the three things you need to understand. The very first point, object is in the memory. It's a different thing. Object is attached to the persistent context. It's a different thing. Object is in the database. It's a different thing. If you understand entity lifecycle, then actually you understand where exactly your object is, such that in case of the transient state, can I say that your object is available only in the memory, but not in the persistent context, nor it is available in the database? Yes or no? Simple. I'm actually explaining you in my common or normal language. The normal language, I was talking to you about the states. One of the state that is available called as the transient state, TRAN, transient state. If I'm talking about the cases, let's say your object is available in memory. Second case, object is attached to the persistent context. Next case, when object is available to the database. In case of transient state, can I say that your object is available in the memory, but it is neither available in the persistent context, nor it is available to the database management system? Is that okay? Second case, if I'm talking about the managed state, in case of the managed state, it is available in memory, definitely. Is it available to the persistent context? Definitely. Is it available to the database? Yes, and they are in coordination also. Let me talk about the third case. When it is into the detached state. In case of the detached state, is it in memory? Yes. Is it attached to the persistent context? No. Is it available in the database? Yes. Getting my point? And fourth case, if I'm talking about the last state, that is called the removed state. Into the removed state, is it in memory? Definitely, because deleting an object from memory is a job of garbage collector in Java. So till the time your object is being pointed by even a single reference variable, definitely it will stay in the memory. It will not be claimed by the garbage collector. Clear, everyone? What is the meaning of term in memory is? If I'm asking you that is it in the persistent context, answer is no. If I'm asking you is it into the database, the answer is practically no. But I am saying that deletion may not be done immediately. Is that clear? From this example, it is clear how the four states are managed. So transient and remove, they are very much look alike. They are very much lookalike, but whenever we are talking about transient means we are talking about a fresh object that never exists in the database. When I'm talking about the remove state, so definitely I'm talking about object that was in the database once. Clear it is? It's all about historical perspective. You can differentiate between the transient and the remove state. So I hope this example is clear for you. I will write down the same example in a better manner using the DAO pattern, but after the break. Break. So this time your break is still 1. Okay, everyone? So after break, welcome back. So now the second part of the session after the break, this is going to be easier for you if you have understand this example. Now on the STS, I'm going to perform the same example for you. Finally, actually, I forgot to write down about the state. The state is actually referred as the fourth state. This is called removed state. And definitely, if something is available into the removed state, then how to put something into the removed state? It is something you can say that out of persistent context, and you can say that the record to be deleted, DELE, deleted from the database. And you can say that if you wanted to put the object into the remove state, then definitely you have to call the remove method for the given entity object. This is what exactly you need to do. Simple one. Simple one. And if you wanted to take the object from remove state to the manage state, then again you have to call the persist method. This is something we have already discussed to you. So now everyone, I'm going to take one example, but first of all, still, if anybody wanted to ask anything for the entity lifecycle, please feel free to ask. If anybody wanted to ask anything for the entity lifecycle, feel free to ask. Okay, shall I proceed further for the example? Everybody, some of the scholars are actually getting confused. What is the use of flush method is? Okay, so before talking about the flush method, have you ever listened about the method system.gc method? This is used to explicitly call the garbage collector. If not, then it's okay. But just actually, let me give you an example. Then this example will help you to understand the flush operation comparatively in a better manner. So listen. For example, I was talking to you about the garbage collector. There is a class available. Let's say that the name of the class is A. There is main method available. In the main method, let's say curly braces open, and within the curly braces, a new block is started. Whenever a curly bracket is open, a new block is started. A string s equal to new string, and let's say that I am writing here hello. Can I say here reference variable s will be destroyed? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So can I say that object hello is eligible to be object hello is eligible to be claimed by garbage collector? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Now, statement number 1. The statement number 1 is that the object will be collected by garbage collector immediately. Agree? The object hello will be claimed by garbage collector immediately. Agree with this statement or no? Answer is no. Because see, garbage collector is responsible for the collection of unreferenced object, but how exactly garbage collector will run, we cannot decide. And garbage collector is not running immediately. garbage collection is not running immediately. It is something that is completely controlled by the JVM. Yes, it is. But still, if you wanted to request, still, if you wanted to request JVM, please run the garbage collector, then there is one method available. The name of the method is called system.gc method. The system.gc request is just a request, not an order. It is just a request you are making to the compiler that Mr. Compiler, please run the, you are making to the JVM system that Mr. JVM, please run the garbage collector. So can I say like, this is a job that is to be done automatically. Garbage collection is a job that is to be done automatically by the JVM. Still, if you wanted to request explicitly, then you can. Is that clear? Garbage collection is the job of JVM. No matter whether you request or not, it will be done by the JVM. But if you wanted to explicitly request, then definitely you can explicitly request also. This is the point number one that I was telling you. This is the point number one that I was telling you. Similarly, everybody, if I'm talking about the flush operation, then what exactly a flush operation is doing, just try to understand. First of all, let's say that you have taken a entity manager em equal to entity manager factory dot. Then we are calling the get entity manager method. Okay, first thing we have taken. Now let's say that you are putting some object, you are putting some object by calling the persist. So what do you think? Insert operation is required to be done immediately? Yes or no? We are thinking that yes, object is attached to the persistent context and insert operation is required to be done immediately, but this may not be the case. This may not be the case. On the other hand, everybody, if you are writing em.flush, then practically can I say that you are requesting the Hibernate to fire the insert query explicitly? Yes or no? This time, can I say using flush operation, we are actually requesting the Hibernate, please run the insert query explicitly. Let's say you are not calling the flush method, you are directly calling the close method. When you are calling the close method, then again it is the responsibility of the Hibernate to run the insert query. But the thing is that if you are not calling the flush method, then Hibernate will do it, and definitely it will do according to its own convenience. But on the other hand, if you are calling the flush method, so you are explicitly putting a request, yes or no? So isn't it something very much like you are calling system.gc? If you are not calling, still work will be done. If you are calling, then work also will be done. If you are not calling the flush method, still your query will be executed. If you are calling the flush method, then you are requesting, please do it now. But your work will be done in both the cases. Now clear? What exactly the use of flush is? Practically, if you are not using the flush, still your database operations will be executed. But how it is useful? For example, let's say you are executing too much number of queries. If there are too much number of queries available, then it will be good to call the flush method after every 4 or 5 queries. Make sense? Because not every time you are going to close the entity manager. Let's say that you are firing 7-8 update queries, immediately call the flush method. Next 7 update queries, call the flush method. Next 7-8 insert query, call the flush method. It will actually keep your Hibernate light. Also, there will be not lot of dependencies. Shall I proceed further for the example or any more doubts? Remaining, whatever topics are there, definitely I will cover them also during the explanation. So it will be good to create a new project. And right now I'm going to use entity states along with the DAO pattern. I'm going to use entity state along with the DAO pattern. So let me create a new project. So how many examples we have discussed? We have discussed about the example of what this project is, first ORM project. In the first ORM project, okay. Right now, new. I wanted to create a project such that the project is going to be a Maven project. Into the Maven project, first thing I have to click on next. Then if I'm talking about the filter, then definitely the filter is going to be Maven, Apache, Apache Maven. Quick start is something that I can write down. No, Maven archetype quick start. It is Maven archetype dash quick start will also work. This is something that is shorter to search. For the short form, you can say MAQ Mac. This is something a trick to remember. M for Maven, A for archetype, Q for quick start. So MAQ Mac is the short form. This is quick start plugin you have to use. Always keep in mind it should be from the org.apache.maven. Always keep in mind it should be from org.apache.maven. Now, clicking on the next. After clicking on the next, it is asking for the archetype, and the archetype I am writing is, let's say that it is life cycle. It is life cycle underscore, and I'm writing here life cycle underscore DAO is good name. Okay, then clicking on finish. After clicking on finish, definitely it will be asking for final confirmation. Form.xml, let it be opened in full screen. Or shift HG. Now it's visible. Pressing Y, hitting enter. This is created successfully. After creating this part, I have to add the dependencies, and definitely these dependencies are already available for me. I need to use both the dependencies, copy, and these dependencies I have to put into the pom.xml file. So I was using lifecycle DAO, then I'm going to pom.xml. After going to pom.xml, first of all, I have to change the version. Let's say version I'm changing to 17. JUnit dependency I do not want right now. Then I'm talking about this part. Is that okay? Dependency is added. And once the dependency is added, then definitely I have to do the right click. Then I have to update the project also. So I'm doing the right click. After doing the right click, I'm going to Maven. After going to Maven, then I have to talk about the update project. After talking about the update project, then clicking on OK. So it is updating into the Maven dependencies. So you can see that we are having MySQL connector jar file, and apart from the MySQL connector jar file, we are having Hibernate core dependency. Other dependencies, whatever downloaded, let them, no problem. The next part, everybody, within the SRC, within the main, first of all, I have to create a new folder such that the name of the folder is going to be resources. Yes or no? Within the resources folder, I have to create one more folder such that the name of the folder is going to be meta-inf. Name of the folder is going to be meta-inf. Now within the meta-inf, I have to create a file such that the name of the file is going to be persistence.xml. Yes or no? So I'm going to create a file. Name of the file is persistence persistence.xml. This file is created. So there is no logic of unnecessary typing anything. Directly, I'm copying and pasting the content. After copying and pasting the content, definitely XML version, everything is going to be as it is. The only thing is that I have to connect to the database. What is the name of the project? The name of the project is lifecycle underscore DAO. So let me open the MySQL command line client. On the MySQL command line client, I have to create the database. Table will be created by the Hibernate, but database is something that I have to create. So first of all, I am writing here that is create table. Sorry, create database. And if I'm talking about the name of the database, this is going to be life cycle underscore and life cycle underscore, what was the name? DAO. Yeah, life cycle underscore DAO semicolon. Then I'm writing, I wanted to use the same database. So definitely to use the same database, I have to write down use life cycle DAO. Then doing the right click, coming here, and then I'm pasting. Property name, CJ, root, everything is this because I wanted to get the table created by Hibernate. So definitely this property I have to keep as it is. Getting my point? This property I have to keep as it is. Is that okay? Yes, it is. That's great. That's great. That's great. Then everyone, persistence.xml is done. Now, because I wanted to follow the DAO pattern. So to follow the DAO pattern, definitely, again, I have to create different packages. So let me create the very first package. Control N, I wanted to create a Java package. The very first package that I wanted to create is going to be for the entity. The very first package that I wanted to create will be for the entity. After the entity package, it will be good to discuss about the next package. such that the name of the next package I can call this is going to be simple. Can I say this is going to be a DAO package? And when we are talking about the DAO package, then definitely I have to discuss about one more package. The name of the package that I have to use is going to be exception package. Yes, it is. After the exception package, we can have service layer also if there is any business logic. If there is any business logic, then you can have service package also. But right now I do not have. That's why I am not creating. In this layer, DTO is not required because DTO is something that is actually replaced by entity. Getting my point? DTO is something that is replaced by entity. So no need to create any DTO. DTO we were used to create into the JDBC. Now this time it is not required. Then everyone, finally, whatever UI operations, so you can perform the UI operations here also into the app, or you can rename this package with the name .ui. This will also work for you. This will also work for you. So right now there is a complete architecture available. First of all, if I'm talking about the entity, into the entity, I wanted to create a class such that the name of the class is going to be, let's say I'm talking about a class, name of the entity class is book class. The very first thing, if you wanted to make it an entity, then definitely you have to use entity annotation. Make sense? If you are saying that I am, if, just a minute. See, next point. If I'm not actually happy with the table name, because by default the table name is going to be by default the table name is going to be book, nothing wrong. But let's say that I wanted to change the table name, then definitely to change the table name I have to write down table annotation. Into the table annotation, there is only one attribute you have to write down, that is name. So let's say this time I wanted to generate the name of the table, that is book tables. You can give any name. Is that clear, everyone? How to use the table annotation? Then the next part. Then the next part. So definitely whenever I am creating an entity, then @ID annotation is required there. Yes or no? Then I'm writing here, let's say that private integer, and I'm writing here book ID. So if I'm writing private integer book ID, then by default, the generated column name is going to be book underscore ID. Yes or no? By default, generated column name is going to be book underscore ID. Simple logic, simple logic, simple logic. Then see, into the MySQL, there is a concept available of auto increment. And what if we wanted to make it auto increment? Can I say auto increment is something that is generated automatically? Yes, it is. Auto increment is something that is generated automatically. Yes, it is. So if I'm saying that auto increment is something that is generated automatically, so there is one more thing available. Can you see there is one slide available in front of you, that is ID generation strategy? The ID generation strategy allow you to define the primary key generation strategy. Like if I'm talking about the MySQL database, in MySQL database, auto increment feature is available. If you wanted to generate the auto increment primary key, then can you see there is second option available, that is called identity. The identity is used for auto increment feature of the database to auto generate the ID value. How to use this thing? To use this thing, you have to go with one annotation. The name of the annotation is called @generated value. The name of the annotation is called @generated value. And into the @generated value, then you have to specify generation type dot identity. Now your book ID column will be auto increment. Is that okay? How to make a column auto increment? Because at the MySQL level, you are going to create auto increment only. You are going to create auto increment only. This is the one thing that actually we have done. Thereafter, everyone, if you are not happy with the column name, then definitely you can write down @column. After writing @column, then I'm writing again name. And this time, let's say that name of the column that I wanted to have is ID only. This will also work for you. this will also work for you. So in this example, what is at the rate table annotation, what is at the rate column annotation, and how to generate a auto increment primary key column. All three concepts clear? That's good. That's good. Then I'm going to the next part. Let's say that after it will be good to have the title of the book, then it will be good to have author of the book, and after the author of the book, then it will be good to have, let's say that private price of the book, and how many columns are created? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Finally, let's say that I wanted to have one more thing, and this is what actually I can call as publish date. So publish date is something that actually belong to date time API. And if you remember, then can you see this line? Can you see this line? Yes or no? So whenever you are having anything related to date time, then you have to use at the rate temporal annotation. You have to use at the rate temporal annotation. And whenever we are using at the rate temporal annotation, then actually we have to specify what type of value it is. Right now the value actually belong to date time. Oh, sorry, only date type. Right now the value actually belong to date type. So in a single example, multiple annotations I have used. Then I wanted to generate a default constructor. So I am writing generate constructor from the superclass. This is done. Then I wanted to generate the constructor from the field. I am generating constructor from all the field except for book ID, because book ID is not required right now. It is automatically auto increment. Thereafter, I wanted to generate the getter and setter method. So getter setter method I wanted to generate for everything. And let's say that for everything. Then finally, if I wanted to generate the toString method, then definitely we can have the toString method also. Is that okay? That's great. That's great. That's great. So one thing is there that is called book ID, title, author, then we have price, after price, then we have published date, and after the published date, this is okay. Complete implementation is there. So first of all, everybody, entity class I have created for you. Any doubt in the entity class? Shall I proceed further? That's good. So entity class is created. Entity class is created. One scholar is asking about at the rate temporal annotation. At the rate temporal annotation, you have to specify whenever your entity is having anything related to date and time. When you have anything that is related to date and time, then at the rate temporal annotation is required. This annotation must be specified for persistence fields or properties of type java.util.date or java.util.calendar. It may only be specified for the properties of these types. See actually what is the story. Listen, from right now, you have already gone through local date and local time class in J111, day number 1213. Yes, it is. At that time, actually, what happened? See, there was practically, you can say that difference of the versions. How exactly this is the difference of the versions? Before local date and local time, there was date and time class available. And what is the problem? In the MySQL, January month is the first month. Yes, it is. But in the calendar class, January month is the 0th month. In the MySQL, month numbers are ranging from 1 to 12. Into the Java date class, they were ranging from 0 to 11. So to overcome this kind of discrepancy, there was one annotation available. The name of the annotation is called at the rate temporal annotation. Getting my point? You can use this with the local date also. Even if you are skipping, still there is no problem. But I'm normally habitual of using this with date and time. Okay. Now let me talk about the next case. Into the next case, I am talking about the DAO class. Onto the DAO class, so let me press Control N. After pressing Control N, then it will be good to create a utility class. So name of the class, that exactly I am writing like we were having DBUtils class. Similarly, can we have a class? The name of the class is going to be, let's say that EMUtils class, Entity Manager Utility class. Into the Entity Manager Utility class, definitely first of all, I have to get the entity manager factory. After getting the entity manager factory, then I have to get the entity manager. So first of all, I am writing here static entity manager factory, EMF semicolon. Thereafter, I am writing the static block. Within the static block, then I am writing here persistence dot create entity factory manager. Then I have to provide the name of the persistence unit, and here name of the persistence unit. Let's say I'm changing it to book connect. Let's say I'm changing it to book connect. Same name I have to specify here. Then I'm creating one more method. Name of the method I'm writing is static entity manager get entity, or let's say that get an entity manager. What exactly I'm writing here? Here I'm writing return emf dot emf dot. There is one class available emf dot create entity manager. Okay, emf dot create entity manager. What exactly it is returning you? It is returning you an entity manager. So can I say this is a kind of same class that we used to create DBUtils in DAO pattern? We used to create the DBUtils class. Here actually I am creating the EMUtils class. Okay. Then if I'm talking about the different methods, then in the DAO pattern, did you remember? First we used to create the interface, and after creating the interface, then we used to create class. Remember? Hmm. So Control N, I wanted to create an interface. Name of the interface, it will be good to call. The name of the interface I would love to call is book DAO interface. Book DAO interface. Into the book DAO interface, first of all, operation that I wanted to perform is, it is going to be, just a second, public void add book, public void add book, and definitely an object of entity class book will be available there. But see, chances are there will be some exception. For example, somebody try to add the same book again. Primary key, duplicate primary key is not allowed. So in this condition, it will be good to throw some exception. Yes or no? And again, it will be good to use the same exception classes. For example, one of the class that we have used is something went wrong exception class. I hope you have remembered this thing so much. Yes or no? Yes, it is very common. It is. So both the classes, instead of wasting time, I am copying both the classes, and within the exception package, I am writing both classes. So something went wrong exception is a class that I have to take care. I have to take care. Now, next point, add book is done. Similar to the add book, let's say that I wanted to find a book for a given book ID. So because I wanted to find a, so I'm writing here that is get book by ID. So because I wanted to get a book by ID, so book ID is something that I can take here directly. One of the exception is going to be something one wrong exception, and the next type of exception is going to be no record found exception. Similarly, everybody, for example, let's say that for a book, I wanted to update the price. So let's say the method is available. The name of the method is going to be update book price. Into the update book price, the first thing that I need to write down is integer book ID. The next thing I'm writing is double price. On the same way, if I wanted to delete a book, then definitely a book can be deleted only on the behalf of book ID. All four methods clear, everyone? What is the use of these methods is? That's great. That's great. And definitely we can write down the Java doc also. We can write down the Java doc also. So we are writing that method to add a book to the database. Okay. Param book. So what exactly a book? The entity object that actually contains all information about the book to be saved. Throw something went wrong exception. If anything wrong happen, if user, oh, something went wrong exception, if not able to, if not able to add book due to any reason, due to any reason. On the same track, everybody, can you write down the Java doc for other also? Yes or no? And this is always a good practice to write down the Java doc. So this is something that is done. See, if you wanted to write down the Java doc, shortcut is actually very, very simple. Shortcut is very, very simple. Slash 2 times star and then enter. Done. Slash 2 times star and then enter. That's all. Automatically the template will be generated for you. And for this template, you can write down whatever documentation you wanted to write. Is that clear? Slash 2 times star, hit enter. That's all. Okay. So BookDAO is available similar to the BookDAO. So it will be good to create one more class. The name of the class is going to be BookDAO IMPL class. So I wanted to create a class. Name of the class that I'm writing is BookDAO IMPL class, and the BookDAO IMPL class is going to implement the interface. The name of the interface is going to be the BookDAO interface. Then clicking on finish, and definitely the code is generated here. The code is generated here. Now, if I wanted to add a book, so first of all, adding a book is very, very simple. The very first thing that I have to do is, the very first thing that actually I have to do is simple. Can I say that I have to get an object of entity manager? Yes or no? Can I see that I have to get an object of entity manager? Make sense, everybody? Yes, it is. And okay. Entity manager, we are writing here. I was having the class. The name of the class is called emutils.class. Then we are calling get an entity manager, and definitely we are going to get an object of entity manager here. Let me import the entity manager here. Okay, it's imported. What went to you, my dear code? Well, once entity manager is available to you, then definitely the next part is to get the transaction. Yes or no? The next part is to get the transaction. And if I'm talking about the getting the transaction, then definitely I'm going to get an object of entity transaction. Let me call it ET. Then definitely it will be good to begin the transaction. Yes, it is. Then definitely once the transaction is begin using EM, it will be good to call the persist method, and into the persist method, same book object has to be provided here as it is. If I'm talking about the edge cases, for example, let's say that some data is invalid. For example, let's say some data is invalid. For example, may be possible that in the book object, somebody has written the name of the book or the title of the book as null. Will you accept such kind of data? Definitely no. So in this condition, did you remember there was one case available that is called persistent contest exception last time? Well, it's okay. Persist method is there. If you look at the syntax of the persist method, refer to the Java doc, directly you can say that it is throwing some exception. One of the exception that it is throwing is the entity exist exception. Entity exist exception is to be thrown when the entity already exists. But now the question is that how exactly you will check that an entity is duplicate or not? So simply can I say that primary key is the only criteria? Make sense? If the two different books are having the same primary key, then definitely they will be treated as same. And in this condition, you will get entity exist exception. But now actually the situation is that primary key is auto-generated. I am not providing the primary key. And because I am not providing the primary key, so can I say that chances of getting the entity exist exception is almost zero? Getting my point? And if you are providing primary key manually, if you are providing the primary key manually, then always keep one thing in mind. At the database level, if the two different records are having same primary key, then they are treated as equal. But at the Java programming level, if for the two different object equals method is returning true, then they are treated as same. Yes or no? Again repeating my point. At the database level, if the two different entries are having same primary key, then they are treated as same. At the Java level, if two different objects, for the two different objects, if the equals method is returning true, then they are treated as same. So can I say that default implementations of equals method is not sufficient? Because it will perform checking on the behalf of comparison operator. So you have to override the hash code and equals method also when you are providing primary key for any entity from the user side. Getting my point? So overall, the point is that everyone, apart from this, due to any other reason, apart from this, due to any other reason, if it is failed, then you are going to get the exception. The name of the exception is going to be persistence exception. So can I say that if persistence exception is there, means something is wrong? Yes or no? And if something is wrong, then it is better to throw the exception that is something went wrong exception. Yes or no? So we are writing through something went wrong exception. And whatever message you wanted to provide, definitely you can provide the message here also. For example, let's say if you wanted to call the get message method here also, you can call, no problem. Clear everyone? You can provide your custom message also. I'm not saying that you cannot provide, but whatever be the message, if you wanted to convey, then you can convey the same message also. If this part is done, then definitely it will be good to commit the transaction. Yes or no? Finally, when the transaction is commit, then it will be good to call the close method. Make sense? In this example, if anybody is having any doubt, then do let me know. If anybody is having any doubt, then please do let me know. Okay. One more case that I wanted to cover. Can you see that there is illegal argument exception is also there? The illegal argument exception, if the instance is not an entity. If the instance is not an entity, see, you can cover this exception also, no problem. You can cover this exception also, no problem. But overall in our application, there is almost no chances that you will pass any object that is other than entity. Clear? There are no chances that you will find any other object, but documentation reading is a good habit. You must always read the documentation whenever you are going to write down the code. So first point is clear, everybody. The add book is a simple method that says if everything is okay, then I'm not going to return anything. If there is anything wrong, then definitely exception will be there. Clear? Simple operation it is. Now, the next part that I wanted to tell you, the next part that I wanted to tell you. See, right now, if I'm talking about the book object, can I say that book object is here available into the manage state? Yes or no? If I'm talking about the book object, can I say that book object is available into the manage state? Yes, it is. Okay. If I'm talking about the book object here, then can I say that here the book object is available into a kind of transient state? Yes or no? Because you are going to pass a new object. That's good. Then if I'm talking about the next case when you are calling the close method, then after calling the close method, can I say that the book object is going to be available into the detached state? Yes or no? Clear everyone? The object that you are getting, the object will be either into the transient state or the object should be into the removed state. When you are calling the persist method, then it is available into the managed state. Once the entity manager is closed, then it is available into the next stage, such that the next state is actually referred as the detached state. Getting my point? Shall I proceed further? Now next point. Now next point. Similarly, everybody, if I'm talking about the get book ID. If you wanted to get the book ID, then definitely first thing you wanted to get is you wanted to have an entity manager. Entity manager is there, then definitely we have to close this entity manager also. Using this entity manager, can we call the find method such that into the find method, the first thing that I wanted to pass is book.class. The second thing that I wanted to write down is book.id. And what exactly it is going to provide me? It will provide me an object of book here. Right now, if I'm talking about the object book, can you tell me what state it is having? Transient, managed, detached, or removed? Write your response. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. It is available into the managed state. The book object is actually available into the managed state. Then you are closing. Once you are closing, then can I say that it is available into the detached state? Yes or no? So can I say that you are returning a entity object of the book that is right now into the detached state? So if you are printing, then no problem. If you are making changes, still there is no problem because there is no coordination between the database and the entity object. Make sense? True it is. Then I'm talking about the update operation. Before talking about the update operation, let me talk about the delete operation. For the delete operation, the very first thing that I need to do is, first of all, I need to get the entity manager. Yes, I have to get. And one more thing that I forgot to check. One more thing that I forgot to check. See, if your book object is null, then can I say that no book found for the given book ID? Yes or no? And in this condition, it will be good to throw the exception such that the name of the exception is going to be no record found exception. Here actually we can say that invalid book ID. Make sense? Yes, it is. And during the find method, if I'm talking about specifically refer to the documentation of the find method, then into the documentation of the find method, only one possibility is there, that is the illegal argument exception. It is only one thing, that is illegal argument exception. So if you wanted to handle this exception, you can. It says that if the first argument does not denote an entity or the second argument is not a valid type for the entity primary key or it is null, then it is possible. So if you wanted to handle this exception, definitely you can handle this exception also. To handle this exception, again, you need to write down the try and catch. When you are writing the try and catch block, then into the catch block, the next exception that you are going to handle is going to be illegal argument exception EX. So let me put this code here. And this time actually book is something I have to create outside, otherwise it will not be accessible. Otherwise it will not be accessible. If I'm talking about code to close, then definitely it's a good habit to write down the code to close into the finally block. We can put the same thing actually here also. And commit is something we can write down here also. This is a better approach. In case of illegal exception, again, it will be good to throw something went wrong exception. Please take a look at the body of get book by ID. Step number 1, getting the entity manager. Step number 2, creating a reference variable. Within the try block, we are trying to find the object. If object is null, then throw no record found exception. If there is an exception, then throw something went wrong exception. If everything is okay, then return the object of book, which is right now available into the detached state. Getting my point? Clear everyone? Shall I proceed further? Yes, it is. Same kind of thing I have to do for the delete also. If I wanted to perform the delete operation, then definitely for the delete operation, first we are getting the entity manager, then writing book equal to null. After writing book equal to null, first of all, I do not have to return anything. First of all, I do not have to return anything. Let's say that searching of the book is successful. If searching of the book is successful, then can I say that book object will be available into the manage state? If searching of the book is successful for the given ID, then can I say that the object of book is available into the manage state? If you wanted to delete some entry, then from the manage state, it should be into the remove state. To take the same thing from the manage state to the remove state, did you remember the remove method? Did you remember the remove method? Yes, it is. And definitely no record found exception is again something that is to be thrown because you are actually updating on the behalf of book ID. So in case of update and in case of delete, it will be good to throw the same no record found exception also. Make sense, everybody? Yes, it is. So same, the no record found exception, I have to add from the get book by ID copy. I have to add the same thing here and I have to add the same thing here also. So entity manager em equal to em utils dot get an entity manager. Then we are calling book equal to null. If definitely there is no record available, then it will say invalid book ID. But if this is available, then if I wanted to take any object from manage state to the remove state, then definitely it will be good to call em dot remove method such that into the remove method we have to pass book object. Yes or no? And one more thing, can you see that this thing has to be within the transaction? Because I'm performing a DML operation, all the DML operation must be within the transactions. So first thing I need to get is these two lines. First of all, I have to attach these two lines. After attaching these two lines, then definitely I have to call the commit also. I have to call the commit also. So it will be good to do one thing. Better to take the entity object here. Clear, everybody, how to perform the delete operation? Please check. Yes for all. Okay. So entity manager em utils dot get an entity manager. Then we are starting the transaction, getting the book object. Right now, actually, this time we can create the book object directly here also because we are not going to return. If this book ID is invalid, then invalid book ID method will be there. Then begin, then remove, finally commit is there, close is there. This is how exactly the things will work. Regarding the remove method, one type of exception is illegal argument exception, which is not possible because we are already getting the book entity from the database. Second exception is possible, that is called the transaction required exception. So we are already doing the thing in the form of transaction. No problem. This is going to work 100%. Okay. Delete book is done. Similarly, everybody, if I'm talking about the update book, similarly, if I'm talking about the update book, and one more thing, see, don't you think that I'm writing the same code again and again? This same code is already available into the get book by ID method. Yes or no? The same is available into the get book by ID method. Because this thing is already available into the get book by ID method, so I can take it from here also. Yes or no? I can take the same thing from here also. Yes or no? If I'm taking the book object from get book by ID, then available object will be into the detached state. Available object will be into the detached state. And when some object is available into the detached state, can I call the remove method? When some object is available into the detached state, can I call the remove method? Answer is no. Answer is no. If still I wanted to use, then first I have to call the merge method, because merge method will take the entity from detached state to persist state or manage state. Then from the merge state, from the manage state, then we can call the remove method. I'm going to use both the approaches. In the update operation, I'm going to use the same approach. So first of all, everybody see, book ID is available for me. Book ID is available for me. When book ID is available for me, then directly. Can I write down something like this? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Just tell me what is the state of the book object. Just tell me what is the state of the book object. Yes, the book object is actually available into the detached state. Keep in mind, it is available into the detached state. See, when I'm calling get book by ID, entity manager is there, book object is there, finding is there. After finding, if everything is okay, then can you see that before returning the book object, we are closing the entity manager. And whenever you are calling close method for the entity manager, then your entities are automatically migrating from managed state to the detached state. So the object of entity book that the get book by ID method is returning, the book object is available into the detached state. Getting my point? Never get confused in this. Never get confused in this. Make sense? That's good. Now everybody, I wanted to take the same thing into the persist state or manage state. If I wanted to take the same thing into the manage state, then I have to call the merge method. Remember? Yes, it is. I have to call the merge method. So let's say that using this book, I'm calling the set price method. Into the set price method, I'm calling the price method. Can I say that no update query here? Can I say that no update query here? Yes, it is. So first of all, again, it will be good to take the entity manager. Yes, it is. After taking the entity manager using the EM, I have to call the merge method such that the merge method will be called on the book object. Let me talk about the merge method, what actually parameter it is throwing. First type is going to be illegal argument exception. Second type of exception is going to be transaction required exception. So because there is a transaction required exception, so first of all, definitely it will be good to get the entity transaction. Thereafter, it will be good to call begin method. Then into the finally block, it will be good to call the commit and transaction method, or directly you can call also, no problem. Is that okay, everybody? How the update operation is working? So when it is into the merge state, so this time if I'm talking about object book, then can we say that state of the object book is going to be into the managed state? Make sense? Yes, it is. Finally, optionally, if you wanted to write down the try catch, then you can write down also. But the only thing, see, for example, let's say that no record found exception is thrown from here. Then definitely the same exception will be provided further because I have attached the same thing into the throws clause. Yes, it is. It will be automatically provided. And once it is automatically provided, then the next type of exception is something went wrong exception. If something went wrong exception is coming from here, then again, definitely it will be forwarded. Finally, the only thing is that let's say that you are getting the problem somewhere here. If you are getting the problem somewhere here, then you have to call the catch block. And into the catch block, what type of argument can be possible? Let's say illegal argument exception is possible there. Cut, paste, done. And then I'm writing here. It will be good to write down row new something went wrong exception ex dot get message. So DAO layer is completed. Any doubt in the DAO layer? And once the DAO layer is completed, can we say that 80% of the work is done? Okay, everyone. So once this part is done, the final job is all about the UI layer. The final job is all about the UI layer. Into the UI layer, we are having app.java. And because we are slightly running out of time, so I'm writing here scanner sc equal to new scanner. Can you complete the DAO layer? Can you complete the UI layer? I think this is very simple for anyone. Yes. Here what you need to do, yes, take input, stuff them into the entity object, then directly call the method of the DAO layer. This is the only thing that you have to do. Clear, everyone? Hmm. On the UI layer, slightly you have to do some copy paste. Rest of the things are already done for me. So this is how exactly your DAO pattern is designed here. This is the one example that we have. So now, today we have taken the complete lecture to understand the entity lifecycle, and I hope this is clear into your mind also. Definitely assignment is something you have to do. Without assignment, everything will be wiped out from your mind. Now do one thing. We are having 3 minutes. Please go to the course platform on LMS and fill the feedback form. 3 minutes from my side for you. Please fill. Those who have done with the feedback form, please write done on the chat. Those who have done with the feedback form, please write done on the chat. Only 3 or 4 responses are there. Everyone, filling the feedback is mandatory for you. Please fill. Otherwise, we have to tap you again for this work, which is not good. And take care for your concept explainer assignments also, please. Tomorrow we will discuss about JPQL, that is Java Persistence Query Language, and apart from that, we will talk about the native query also. Everyone, it is mandatory to fill the feedback form. Please fill. Please fill the feedback form.